Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining SACR and Lumia Security on Unified Agentic Defense Platforms. We are thrilled to be hearing from Lawrence Pingree, Head of Data Security and AI Research at SACR, and Bobi Gilburd, CTO at Lumia Security. Should be a very lively and interesting discussion. If there are any questions, please use the Q&A function within your Zoom interface, and we will be sure to address those at the end of the session. Lawrence, Bobi, why don't you take us away?
Yep. Let's start. Lawrence, are you able to enter the conversation?
So Lawrence will be in shortly, Bobby. Maybe we can just kickstart the introduction first with you.
Of course, of course. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Really happy that you find the time, and hopefully we'll find this short meeting interesting and valuable. I am Bobi. I am the CTO of Lumia Security. We have started the company about 18 months ago. Before founding the company, I was with a teammate, which incubated the company. And before that, I've spent most of my adult career doing hacking for the Israeli government. Nothing to do with what we do nowadays, but just bringing this experience as an attacker to building a defensive mechanism. It's something that I found really valuable and useful. And we are here to discuss the area of how do we secure this innovation breakthrough of AI, the lessons learned, and we will begin by a short introduction of Lawrence and the work, the great work that SACR have done around this field. And then we'll tell you a little bit about what we have built. Feel free to ask questions and to make it as interactive as possible. We have quite a few people here, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions after we go over what we have prepared for you. Thank you. Lawrence.
Yeah, sorry, folks. The joys of technology are hitting me right straight in the face. I know, Bobby, can you see me correctly yet?
Yeah, I can see well.
Okay,
Everything's
I just
great.
want to make sure. Sorry, folks. Yeah,
Everything is
Zoom is
great.
a beast. All right, give me just a second to make sure this is working. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, it was good before. You can just switch to the edit mode as it was before, and it just continue the viewing, the slide sharing mode.
Okay, so you're seeing the full screen now?
No, we see that.
You're
And
not.
no, we're not seeing the full screen, Lawrence. Maybe just make it slideshow.
Hold on.
On
Yeah, I
top,
know. You'd have to kind of be here.
on the
This thing.
top right, if you see
Yeah.
slideshow. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I know. Sorry, folks.
And
Okay. Now are you seeing the right one?
Yeah, this
yes,
is
yes,
great.
it's good.
All right. Can you see me on the screen too?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. All right, folks. Well, sorry about that. We had technical fun in the morning this Thursday. So today we're going to talk about Unified Agentic Defense Platforms, what SACR calls UADP. Now, both of us, myself, Lawrence Pingree, I'm a head of research at SACR. I've been, an analyst for almost 17 years. Former Gartner analyst. I published 300 research notes. We also have Bobi here, the co-founder and CTO of Lumia. Today, we're going to talk about UADP and the study that I did. And so essentially we'll go through, what's kind of the extending, and expanding AI and agentic attack surfaces. We'll look at traditional defense, and kind of the shortcomings, the inflection point that we're in. We'll go through the market definition. We'll talk through, what are the capabilities of UADP. And then, of course, the gold here is our survey rankings and kind of the methodology behind it. And then we'll finish off with a bit of background about Lumia since they helped sponsor the webinar today. So, taking a first stab at this is, we need to understand what AI agents and agentics is, right? Most of us have experienced chat interfaces. In some cases, agents are being baked into applications, or they're being done behind the scenes. But the basic construct is you have a goal-oriented, software interface that's tied to an LLM. It has a reasoning engine and a control loop that allows it to remotely control software and perform task execution, goal attainment, and that final outcome. And along the way, it might execute various tools or do development efforts or change configurations. This morning, I was using a Hermes agent and doing all kinds of dossiers on tech companies. So basically what agentics is the field of using AI agents. So when we look at, building and operating AI, there's lots of, new security challenges emerging, right? There are three key kind of AI agents that are emerging. There's the homegrown, which are built and engineered for internal users and customers, like my Hermes agent. There's also the SaaS agent platforms, Claude and, all of the various providers like Salesforce and others that offer embedded agents within their platforms. And then there's also the local, agents where you can, download, and manage agents across various workstations, et cetera. And so, you have major risks in things like retrieval augmented generation or inputs, the tool calling, and then also wherever the agent is running, you have to monitor that environment, okay? And then also when it comes to deploying AI and agents, there's an evaluation process that spans all the way to shift left, which is all your DevOps tooling, your IDEs, how they're operating, all the way into things like the data security around the model, tracking lineage of the data going into the model, and then finally the runtime environment where production, agents and AI are delivered. So, when we look at the challenges here, obviously that expands our attack surface. One of the things I commonly say here to folks at SACR, our clients, is that it's important to remember that humans have a stack of risks and threats. When you then attach that to an agent, it's not just, if you use that agent to operate the user's environment, it's stacked on top risk, right? And then, of course, traditional offenses that have not been crafted for AI and agentics are really at a huge inflection point. Everyone is retooling to be able to address this environment. And this means that, they need visibility into the runtime environment, especially if it's a SaaS. Those SaaS providers need to provide the ability to API call the runtime or give them visibility. If it's in the cloud and it's a homegrown instance, you need visibility there. And then, of course, security for AI and LLMs is becoming very essential in defense across, most CISO line cards. A lot of them are searching for how do we comply, how do we, meet NIST objectives or RMF objectives. And so, I think that if you look at the wider angle lens here in the trend space, autonomous response capabilities are now a required feature, right? So if we look at the hidden dangers, there's this one example, you can't, I use a cheeky phrase here, you can't sue a chatbot, but you can sue its owner, right? The critical takeaway is in one case, Air Canada, there was a provided incorrect fare, and obviously they have to honor it. Same thing with Chevy Tahoe. So your AI itself, if it provides the wrong information, maybe it's prompt injection, maybe it's tampering of the web application or parameters, etc. Any kind of malfeasance could potentially make you liable. AI agents can be hacked, right? The documents they read can spin them out of control, direct them to do malicious actions, push them off their goal, or just perturb their goal slightly. And then when you have things like, employees that are using agents to maybe read their email, and there's been several instances of this where, your agent just exfils the email or the data. And of course, nation state actors are using agentics to, perform scaled attacks. And I think everyone's been hearing about Mythos. Mythos is super scary. I actually wrote about this in 2023. I believe that essentially there will be goal-based malware that has its own C2 that will be able to write its own, malicious exploits and kind of morph as it goes along, which is a scary form of malware. So, there's other risks here. Obviously, we need to monitor any kind of, prompt injection. We need to understand all the inputs, the outputs, especially when we start to give agency to agents. And I'll give you an example here. I was using, an open command line agent, and I asked it to make some privilege changes. It just so happened to realize, oh, well, I could probably change the permissions of sudo, and then all of a sudden I'm out of my Linux system. I can't even administer it. So things can go off the rails really quickly, and we need tools that are making sure that there's not goal divergence or misuse of tools when it comes to calling MCP servers. And of course, the RAG and the data that is sourced for agent context, super critical. And anybody that on this webinar that's tested these tools, it comes down to you need to. I kind of like think of it as like babysitting a 6-year-old. You got to babysit it. You've got to put the guardrails on and perform governance. And then there's also the shadow AI agent risk when it comes to identities, right? There's been an explosion of identities, and that's forced everyone to think about and augment, their ability to not only inspect the agent, but issue, ephemeral or short-lived credentials, and then zero standing privileges to prevent, sort of privilege escalation in the environment and give them just-in-time privileges. And of course, there's also the risk of model theft, extraction of data, all of those things. Oh, and don't forget about all the other application vulnerabilities in the OWASP top 10, right? You still have to deal with the generic, software development, and the web applications, the business logic, all have to be dealt with. Now, of course, there's also frameworks and regulatory mandates, and I just woke this morning to AI mandates on model release that are being considered. But you have things like, the U.S. Executive Order 14110, that's driving things like, federal demand to generate, safety reports and things like that. There's the NIST AI RMF, which is a risk management framework. It gives you, kind of, relevancy when it comes to buying things like DSPM capabilities. Then there's also the DORA, EU cyber. But anyway, all of these things are changing the way that we adopt AI and have to enforce various aspects of compliance. So when we take a step back at what is definitional for unified agentic defense platforms. Now, for most of you that have read my research over the years, I'm very much a security purist, idealist. Call me what you want. You could probably call me names, but I always reach for the stars, right? So what my approach to looking at unified agentic defense was, how do I define a survey that maximizes the outcome that I seek, which is we want the ability to basically delve into the entire life cycle of the AI, right? The perform threat detection across the landscape, look at agentic workflows, their tools, the visibility and security that they offer, the ability to control, the runtime itself, the ability to control data in and out, whether it's in motion, or stored somewhere, the posture and the compliance of all of the different architectures that are running the AI or the agents, and then also any autonomous remediation. So I set the bar really high here. And this is kind of the definitional aspects of UADP. So we have the workflow security, which includes prompt shielding, model risks, which is essentially developing model cards, understanding what's going into your AI, monitoring the workflow of agents, the data security aspect, as I kind of pointed out, DSPM capabilities, DLP capabilities, looking at privacy and compliance, being able to policy enforce on, data leakage or intent, and then looking at the runtime environments that includes the endpoints, the workload, the identity, and the cloud defenses that might be deployed to perform runtime defense, as well as the non-human identities for agents. They are also included an assessment of things like threat intelligence, global feeds, observability data, and auto hunting, as well as automation, autonomous playbook execution. And I measured all these things. So what we came up with is a matrix ranking called the Majestic Technoscope. And that evaluates vendors on two dimensions, which are purpose and delivery. The x-axis is delivery, kind of assessing the execution and the efficacy. And then the y-axis is, purpose, assessing the vision, the strategy of the company, and the roadmap. Now, this is very tech-centric. People are not ranked because of revenue or other dimensions. It also considers their innovation, the efficacy, and the compliance capabilities of their products. Okay. We surveyed 15 vendors. Actually, we surveyed a few more. A few of them didn't want to participate. But we assessed things like their remediation and automation capability. So can they perform fully autonomous remediation of DSPM risks? I looked at their organizational commitment, the backgrounds of the founders, their customer success, and do they have a defined program, and are they, monitoring those things? Deployment, whether it's low risk, frictionless, or, agent deployment, etc. I looked at all those things. I looked at their commercial model. Is it transparent? Is the pricing value-based? And does it maybe, go with, usage-based, or does it, introduce any unpredictability? I looked at the supply chain aspects, their ability to read AI, AI bombs, S bombs, that kind of thing. I looked at the workflow visibility. Now, at this time, I would say the agentic workflow visibility is quite more advanced in the market than a few months ago. Everyone vibe coding away. And then also ecosystem breadth, right? Like what are you able to integrate with, and the total number of connectors, that kind of thing. And then I looked at market penetration, what we perceived as their penetration in the market. So when we did this survey, I want to make sure that everyone understands. I always come from a analyst objectivity, trustworthiness perspective. If anybody knows me, it's like super finite on that. Everything contractualized here was contractualized with analyst objectivity. Vendors provided a self-assessment, and then I read through their self-assessment, their own scores, and then whatever justifications that they provided. Then I dug through their documentation. I went through everything and then validated and created my own scoring. Now, I'm not disclosing the internal scores, and there was some weightings. But as I said earlier, I focus on tech and I focus on, outcomes. The vendors and customer interviews we did were objective third-party conversations. And, we also asked for every vendor to do demonstrations to provide, real-world use cases. And then we did offer vendors a factual review. So rather than go through all of this, I mean, basically we kind of already went through it, but this details you the X and Y axis, so that you can understand kind of the dimensions. You can go through that at your leisure. I don't want to waste too much time. Here are the results. And of course, since Lumia is sponsoring this webinar, I've circled them in the graphic, but notice that there are some big names in here, and not everyone's top ranked in the big name category, right? And that means because this is an early emerging market, and everyone is racing to try to deal with this new future of AI and agents. And I think, this cluster where you see, Lumia, Sierra, and Veeam really means that these are tightly coupled. They're competing very heavily, and they're doing well. When we take a step back and look at kind of the maneuvers, there are some orientations. Obviously, there's been a platform adoption wave for, I would say quite a few years now. People preferring platform concepts. And I would actually characterize that everyone's becoming a platform. But essentially, the big platform providers have been moving in. And there's also, folks like Sierra entering the market, and Lumia, with their, real-time, truth and context layer. And I think, when I look at this, everyone's on a race to make sure that, they have the breadth they need and the capabilities they need to treat agents like humans, right? But, treat them with more care than they currently get in this space. So, that's a quick look at what we're seeing there. From the market trends in UADP, essentially I looked at all the roadmap plans, and obviously everyone developing, things like agentic governance and authority. They're, deepening their agent framework integrations. A lot of folks have been adding things like, more capabilities in order to integrate with various systems, for data and AI security, telemetry. For those that are more API based, they've been, integrating with platforms and kind of focusing there. And then also runtime expansion. And in agentic identity, we've also seen an expansion in runtime and a little bit of merger between the runtime and identity there. We do see that the final destination for a lot of this tech is the UADP construct over time. We've also seen, product plans expanding, on the shift left side, not just the runtime, and also in things like building better data planes, the ability to control data, integrate with things like data loss prevention products, Microsoft information protection, and obviously for all of us in agentic land, the shift to autonomous AI workers. Now, the way I define the overall shift is that we're moving from static to probabilistic and real-time intervention, right? So one key aspect of this is intent awareness. And intent awareness is something I realized a lot of the prompt inspecting products were doing is essentially when a natural language query came through, they were evaluating what's its intent, right? If I ask a question, that might be a knowledge-based intent, right? If I ask it to launch a shell and go breach somebody else's Linux system, yeah, malicious intent, right? Now, I could see a taxonomy coming from that, and a lot of the vendors using that in their policy constructs. So pairing that up with geolocation, IP address, employee roles from HRMS system, integrations and, all of that. And then, of course, a huge emphasis on runtime expansion. And the way that I would describe this is, you can't get you got to get the cart before the horse, which means runtime is all about assessing things that are happening in the now moment, right? Whether it be in memory, executing, tasks, etc. Super important to monitor agents. And when I look at this space, it's sort of like EDR. It's akin to EDR, but it's, fine-tuned to agents and all of their tools and their API visibility. And then obviously there's agent frameworks that are running all over the place. And so, visibility into the way that those are configured, the way that agents are, kind of, built, their MD files, all of these things need to be monitored as part of the runtime environment. So obviously, we talked about some of the major, AI and agentic threats. I think prompt injection is pretty well at least understood. I don't know if it's entirely solved. Lumia might be able to weigh in on that, but I do think that uncontrolled actions is probably and excessive agency is probably where most people are concerned, right? Because of my example, the training data and data poisoning is important when it comes to the web. Obviously, whenever we search the web, you can, there's data fountains of poisoning going on the web. I think there needs to be more contextualization on the intelligence side to prevent that. There's also, of course, AI and agent misuse. And that's probably the other second big risk here is this some attacker, perturbs my agent and makes it go off the rails and do something malicious, right? So, um, obviously there's a life cycle to all of this. You need both the, ability to augment and prepare data. You need to be able to do the development, the experimentation, deploy, operate, attest, and then maybe retire agents, right? So all of this life cycle has to be fully automated in a UADP platform. And again, that's that panacea, of being able to do it from all the way shift left to all the way shift right. Right being, I would say, the more important aspects because that is where breach, data loss, and other, excessive agency exist. Some trends to watch. Look for, the autonomous security operations being embedded here, and then closed loop remediation. I'm sure that a lot of you are using a lot of tooling for various things in security, but I would encourage you to use the automation that is available. Don't just sit and look at screens and report out to your auditors. With Mythos, you can't do that anymore. We've got to be in prevention mode. Look for clearer signs of the demerger of data security and AI. I think it's clear as a bell that all of these providers are moving there or have moved there. I introduced a concept called JIT trust, which is taking that intent and making it part of just-in-time privileges. You can go look at the research on SACR's website to find that or our Substack. And then, of course, things like agentic governance, the authority, predictive and proactive exposure modeling and management, which I'm actually developing a pitch on now, which I think is pretty interesting. But think about exposure management being fully, automated by agentics. And then a unified data plane. So being able to, offer the features of being able to affect data, their usage patterns, and even agent to agent, kind of handling. One thing I wrote about years ago that I think is interesting is, when one agent communicates to another agent, how does it tell the other agent, hey, this is our data handling policy, and oh, by the way, you should tag the document with these kinds of, labels or, things like that. So agent to agent, I think, is going to be an interesting future view here. So let's turn over to a poll.
Yeah,
Let
thank
the
you,
poll
Lawrence,
run.
for your trends to watch. It was really interesting. So you can be
Yeah.
ready for a quick water break. So I'll be launching a poll right now for our attendees. Have you nailed your AI app and agent usage policy? We would love to know. Please, please let us know your opinion. Yes, no, we will share the results in next 30 to 40 seconds.
All right. It looks like five people so far answered absolutely no, which I think is an expected response here. So again, the poll, have you nailed your AI app and agent usage policies? All right, we're almost there. Oh, somebody said yes. That's awesome.
Just one.
That's great. All right, I think
Okay.
gave it
We can
enough
end the
time here.
poll now. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so 89% said no, you have not nailed your AI app and agent. And I'm going to share the results here. Sorry, my UI is a little slow.
And then we can move to the next.
Yep, give me a second. I'm hoping that my user interface doesn't die. Come on.
I can stop sharing now the results.
Excellent. Can you
And
do that?
yes, I did that. And we will move on to the next segue of our session. So,
Okay,
Bobby, take it away.
Of course, of course. Thank you everyone again for joining, and thank you, Lawrence. I think this is a good opportunity to thank SACR and Lawrence for their professional work. I've known Lawrence since his days in Gartner, and I really believe that we, the cybersecurity community, are really lucky to have people as Lawrence working alongside us as vendors. And again, thank you very much. Again, I'm Bobi. I'm the CTO of Lumia Security. Started the company a year and a half ago. I'm not here to tell you about Lumia and the product. If anyone is interested in hearing, we can follow up after this webinar, but just about to follow up with some of the insights that Lawrence have shared. And yes, thank you very much, Nupur. Um, I will start by saying, and we have seen it in the poll, that this is definitely, everyone knows, this is an emerging market. It's not something like the a ransomware, for example, that anyone knows what is the problem and that everyone knows that they should protect against. AI advances really, really fast, faster than anything that we have seen before. And so is the security implications of this. And we are constantly monitoring the advances and trying to understand what will be the right way to provide security. We are focused on the usage control, means how we protect organizations from the risks that comes from the employees' usage of this great innovation leap. And employees can be either human employees or agents that work on behalf of these human employees. And Lawrence talked a lot about the intent and the context. You cannot really do any security analysis without understanding, okay, this is a prompt that comes from people, someone trying to copy a file or someone trying to train a model. So the context is really important. So we take the interactions. Let's skip to the next slide. Nupur, if you can just click or I can click. Okay. Yes, let's. Now I can click, but if you can reveal the. Okay. Yeah, so we start by extracting the traffic, the content. The content is everything. These are prompt and responses and the files that were being shared, if any, the identity that the user that was sending these files or prompts, which models was being used. Is this a model that trains over the data or not? What are the skills that were used? Which MCP servers were part of this communication? And then we inspect, of course, inspect is trying to get all of the information that we were able to extract and connect it together in order to come up with some understanding of this. Is this dangerous? Is this classified information? And again, just taking a prompt without identity is useless. We take the prompt, the identity, the application that was used in the context in which this user was running, and then we come up with the decision whether this is something that the user would like to apply some kind of pre designed policy, and then we can enforce. Enforce can be either creating a visibility for the admins, it can be sending some message to the user, it can be blocking, it can be a reduction. The idea is that here is that most of the violations today are not really adversarial. That is not that someone wants to make harm. It's either from negligence or from not knowing. So we really deal a lot with education, educating people. This is not allowed. This is not really smart to share your board presentation with ChatGPT or Claude because it has some confidential information inside. And everyone is making these kind of mistakes every day. I copy paste even though I know that it's not the smartest thing to do. And features like reduction that our users really love allows not blocking the user, but just remove the secret information from inside. What makes this approach, if Nupur, if you can just skip to the next slide. When we started, we immediately understood that in order to govern AI, you must really cover everything because people love their AI. Everyone had their own preferences. Even though the organizations sanction only Copilot, people like ChatGPT and they will find ChatGPT and find ways to use it. And if they will not find way to use it, they will use their own private device, which we don't like. So we would like to make sure that we are monitoring everything, and everything means not only the browser. It can be native app, it can be AI integrated into the operating system. For example, we meet a lot of organizations that say, "Hey, yeah, we block ChatGPT altogether." And then I asked, what about the app? We are not allowing the app. And then I show them that everyone with a Mac OS can communicate with ChatGPT from inside the operating system. And this is actually impossible to block. So the only way to govern AI, from our point of view, is to do it through the network. And this is something that, on one hand, is a little bit complicated for us as a company to build. But once we manage to do it, we have a complete coverage of everything that comes from the endpoints. And we don't care whether this is a browser, a native application, even running Cloud Code or Cursor from the terminal. We do so by integrating with either your existing security stack or deploying our own agent. And the interesting stuff is the middle, again, compiling the data with our understanding of the intent, the classification. We use LLM and the AI in order to classify this information and to understand whether this is something confidential or not. The good old days of DLP, the saying about DLP and regex is that you were always adding the rule of the incident that you have just missed. And we all know that DLP and regex never really worked. And we are really happy that we have the opportunity to build our DLP upon the build DLP capability upon LLM. And this is something really powerful. One of our now customers are speaking Japanese. And when we started the POC, back then, we revisited them after a week or so and we asked them, how are things going? And they say, everything is going great. Let's open your dashboard and take a look. And we were really surprised to see everything there in Japanese. But we never trained, no one in Lumia knows Japanese. But the LLM knows Japanese and knows the language. And this is one example of leveraging the power of LLM for a classification. And again, once we are done with the classification, you can run your policies and enforce either by combining it with your SIEM or any other ways. If anyone is interested in learning more about this, we can do it afterwards. I now want to say a couple of words about the use cases because this is really important. Nupar, if you can just skip to the next slides. Yes, of course, this is the a sample of applications we support. When I say support, is really looking on the prompt response files, everything that goes through. If you just want to block DeepSeek, you don't need solutions like ours. But if you want to go one step deeper to the actual content, this is where we shine. Let's skip to the next slide. I want to make sure that we have some time for discussion. Okay. The use cases. So when we started, and again, looking back, things moves really fast now. So looking back a year ago is not that far, but it's really far in the age of AI. Back then, people, about 2 years ago, we have started this journey. I was with teammate and we are been exploring this even before starting Lumia. So 2 years ago, a lot of organizations actually told us that they are blocking. Nowadays, you can rarely see organizations that are blocking. The organizations realize that blocking means harming your organization productivity. So blocking, it might be an easy IT solution, but you cannot really block. And again, you only think that you block because people find really creative ways to use their AI. Um, we back then saw that visibility was the number one request back then, and then people want to know what AI product are the developers, the HR, their employees are using. So visibility, of course, is the first stage. Then there is the leakage, the data protection. This is still the number one concern that we see. The number two, and this slowly making to be the number one, and I completely agree with Lawrence, agency is the next big challenge. We are seeing a shift from prompts to actions. Prompts meaning looking for secrets in prompt response and files. Actions is dealing with the agency. I'm now using Claude Code, and Claude Code is running actions on my behalf. I want to make sure that Claude Code is not deleting some files or accessing some sites. So you can think of it as the switch from DLP to actions firewall or AI firewall, or how we can govern not only the content, but also the action. And this is something that we see a great shift towards in the last couple of months. Of course, with the introduction of Claude Code, and um, by the way, we see great success for Anthropic. We have no interest in Anthropic, but we see great success for Anthropic in enterprises. They're probably doing something really good because we see enterprises adopting Anthropic, the Anthropic suite, the Cowork, and Claude Code really, really fast. And as soon as they adopt it, they understand that they must govern also the actions that these cohorts and Claude Code are taking, in addition to governing the content. So this is the move from the data protection to the compliance and to the threat defense. Of course, the adversarial attacks are always there, and as when we move from human interactions to agents, and at the end to AI workers, we will see a shift of risks from the leakage to the adversarial attack. We cannot just bet on one, say, okay, we are doing only DLP. No one, it won't be smart, even though the DLP is the main use case that we see concern nowadays. So we focused on all three of them. And again, the trick, and everyone, I'm talking with my friends, co-founders, and other companies, things are moving really fast. No one has yet nailed the usage of AI, and consequently, no one knows what are the risks that will be there in a year or two. So it's really exciting for us to be on the forefront of this brave new world. And as a security vendor, allow productivity. We see what we build not as a security product, we see it as an enabler for productivity. AI means productivity for your organization. You cannot adopt AI without making sure that you're not risking your enterprise. And we see ourselves as enablers for this innovation. Um, I think I'll stop here. We have 10 minutes, and
Yes.
really, yeah, I'll take
Thank
it.
you so much, Bobby, for introducing Lumia and talking so much about the features that you offer. So as we are closing the presentation, here's a quick poll. We want to know your opinion on what is your top AI agent security priority in the next 6 months. You can possibly think within your own team, within your own organization. We would love to know your thoughts on this. And while you're doing it, we would love to know if you have any questions. So drop in your question in our question and answer chat box, and we will answer them for you. So I don't see any questions till now, but please make sure that you pop in.
Yeah, it looks like I don't know if everyone can hear me. I think you can.
Yeah,
Managing agent identity and permissions is top of the rank so far. We've got three
definitely.
people answering. Hopefully, others can join in. Oh, it's getting better. It's getting better. It's a race condition. Oh, shouldn't make race condition jokes with
Yeah.
agentics, right? Um, it looks like it's a pretty even split between
Mhm.
managing agent identity permissions and controlling risky actions, as well as data. So those are the big priorities. All right, I'll leave it on the screen for just a few more moments. If anybody else wants to answer. All
Yeah, I
right,
completely
Nicole, I think we
agree
can just end the
with
poll.
Lawrence that there is. I think that the interesting thing to note here is that there is no any definitive winner because all of these are risks, and this is something that we should realize that we should, as a security providers, manage all of them, and we cannot just say that we are doing one and ignore the others.
Oh, I agree. I think it's a unified that the whole reason for the convergence story of UADP is just that, right? But I do think interest shift, right? I think if I were to characterize last year, it was all about, oh, I'm a little bit worried about shadow AI and, the data that people are uploading, and now it's kind of shifting into, wow, we actually have agents now and they need identities and they need permissions that are, behavioral based and intent based, right? So all right. I think that we've got a good reading there. I'm going to go ahead and share the results.
Mhm.
Nipur, you might need to do that for me.
I did that, Lawrence. So the
You
poll results
did.
were shared. I think we
They
can
were.
end the
All
poll
right.
now.
Excellent.
Mhm.
All right. So now
Okay.
we have Q&A. Anybody want to ask us open questions? Feel free to use the Zoom interface to ask any open questions that you have.
Let's just make sure that this
So
is.
a question just came in.
Mhm.
Where should teams start, right? What's the controls that should be prioritized when an organization is looking to formalize AI or agent security?
Ooh, it's an interesting question. I mean, kind of like how I characterized. I think most organizations tend to follow the NIST controls, and NIST 101 is, understand your assets, right? And so I think visibility and observability come first, and identifying shadow AI. And then once you know that, then it's okay, well, what do I do about data security and uploading data? Maybe the wide swath sort of policy, don't upload my, social security numbers, credit cards, defined regulated data types. And then it goes to, oh gosh, now they're starting to behave badly, right? So I think that's the sort of natural progression. And what's funny, Matt, is this same progression kind of happened as we, went into the cloud, right? It
Mhm.
started out as, what am I using in the cloud? And then the same kind of thing happened in SaaS when everyone deperimeterized and went to SaaS. It was all about shadow SaaS, right? Then it shifted gears as the APIs and the integrations became possible and the runtimes got extended. We then went into data security land, right? So I don't know if you would agree with that, Bobby. Maybe chime in. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Visibility is the number one. I will say visibility and humbleness. I will explain in a minute. About the second, we see, I think it becoming a pattern. We start working with organizations. They say, oh, we know exactly what we are using. We only have 5 sanctioned application and everything is blocked. And we are asking, are you sure? Are you sure? And then in 2 days, we bring this report and they're just amazed of the things that people are using, of course, unsanctioned. Don't assume that you know, and this is the second, the humbleness, don't assume that you know what is going on your network. Just using for example, ChatGPT agent mode. This is an agent in a browser. So
Yeah.
no need to install any applications. And again, people are aware of this new thing. They are hear from their friends. So assume that you don't know what's going into your network. Start with visibility. Visibility should be ongoing, and only then define the policy. You cannot define a policy while being blind about what is happening around. So visibility is not the first step. This is zero. Just before doing anything. And of course, usage policy. should be in place, and usage policy without enforcement is useless. This is also thing that we have seen. By the way, as soon as people started just getting these messages and notes, we see people comply immediately, and they know that they're being tracked and monitored, and there is someone that is actually enforcing the policy. So people are behaving really, employees are behaving really well when there is a written usage policy, and that just by knowing that this is something that is being enforced, and the organization is really serious about this. Once you have the visibility, of course, define the policy. Take into consideration that the state of the art today will change tomorrow. Don't bet on one model, one provider. Build your plan in a way that will allow you to scale and to use this innovation, because it's really the best coding agent every day this week. I will give you a different answer. Claude Code is doing great work. Cursor are doing great work. And there are some others that are trying to read there. Don't build all your policy assuming that in the next year you will work only with a single model or vendor. Adopt this. This is different. Adopt the fact that this is something that we have never seen. It's bigger than the cloud. It's probably the size of the invention of the computer, I would say. And this is something that all of us should approach with humbleness, and making sure that it's good to say, I don't know what will happen in a month or even a week. We as a vendor, we say so, and I think all the security leaders should adapt it as well.
That was great.
I agree. So, Bobi, there was one other question. Matt, did you want to read that off to us?
Absolutely. Yes. This question is squarely on you, Bobi. It's around, you spoke a little earlier about content, context, and intent. Tell us more about the controls behind the scenes, right? What's going on? What's the scanning? What can you give any insight upon that?
Yeah, right. So again, we're a network solution, which means that we see network traffic, and the network traffic is really, it tells you everything if you know how to read it. At first, you can see, for example, just a stream of bytes. And if you analyze the stream of bytes, you see that this is a stream of bytes that contain JSON with the prompt. But this is not enough. You have the user agent of the application that we're sending. And then we are actually, in some cases, know to identify from the network that this was actually a copy paste from Excel to PowerPoint. So all of this granularity and we are trying to extract as much information that we can. We are doing some cool tricks like timing, for example, or user agent, and looking at or the cipher suits that they are using in order to understand, okay, this prompt, what the context, in addition to which who is the user that generated it, comes from this, comes there. This is a copy paste. This is a drag. In some cases, we even know whether this is a file that was uploaded by clicking upload or by dragging from some application. And all of this is super valuable for the policies that organization would like to build, because they don't want to block everything. And again, we have seen some organization, we are not allowing sharing files. Okay, this is an option, but you do want to share files in some cases. So extracting all of this information, whether this file comes from, whether this is a confidential file or not, it was created inside the organization or not, it is copy paste, or was generated by another AI, or this is some security. For example, we have security teams. We are doing adversarial detection. We have security teams that are doing adversarial testing. So how can I differentiate between a real attack to a security, to someone doing pen testing, valid pen testing, which I obviously don't want to block. So in this example, I can use the department where this employee is part on. So all of these are examples of us extracting from the network and other sources. It can be the organization's IDP, it can be some EDR logs, trying to build the correct picture of, okay, what is this? It's not just plain text. This text that was generated by this application, by this user, and this user want to make this action. Should I block it? Is it malicious or not? And it's all about this. Again, we really immediately after being able to extract all this information, the real challenge is in the analysis, in the building the picture of what the user really tried to do.
I would agree. All right, I think we're just about out of time. I don't know if you want to just do some wrap-up thoughts.
I think, yeah, we are at time. If anyone is interested in follow-up from either SACR or Lumia or anything, feel free to approach. Um, as a CTO, it's not only that I'm building a product, I really feel that I'm learning this world just from the interaction with organization. This is something really exciting. And we do see in some cases there is quite a big difference between the hype and the real world. Um, People are still battling with leakage. And on the one end, on the other end, we see organization adapting these agentic tools. But anyone, regardless of your stage in this journey, that is interested in our insight, feel free to approach us.
I would agree. I'll just give you my finishing thoughts. I think Lumia, you guys are doing a great job at giving us visibility, control, data protection, and certainly I'm a big fan of sand key diagrams and navigation and graphing. So I love your user interface. But anyway, thank you very much, Bobby, for your time today. Really
Thank you, Dolan.
appreciate it, and thank you everyone else for both dealing with our tech problems, but also your interest in AI. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a
Bye
wonderful
bye.
day.